All right, welcome back to Global Conflict TCG. This is part two on how to make your own trading card game. I'm Ryan. Thanks for coming back. Hopefully, you guys saw the first video where I talked about affinity and templates and things like that. In this part two, we're going to talk about how to actually build the templates yourself and get yourself ready to make your own trading card game in Affinity. Every time that I make a card or I work, on a project, I usually have a template in mind so that I'm ready to print whichever product or card that I'm working on. So that's going to be the first thing that we do. Um, the ultimate goal, right, is to make your own trading cards, your actual physical trading cards, like what I have here. Um, these were printed at the Game Crafter, and so that's what I'm going to show you guys is where I go get the template. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I just go to thegamecrafter.com. And if you go to products, so if you just we'll click on products here. So go to products and then click on cards. You can scroll on down and then there's a poker deck right there. So that's what we're looking for. For this type of card, I use poker deck size, which is very similar to Pokemon. And so on this page here, the templates are right at the top that that you're going to need. So I usually download the PNG. Just click on it, and it's going to open up a browser window for you to download. I already have that downloaded. But another thing we need to look at on this page is the image size. So we need an image size of 825 by 1125 pixels. That's very important because when you get ready to actually print the cards with the Game Crafter, you need to make sure that picture is the same, is that required size. And that essentially what that does is as long as you follow their template and you have that image size, it's going to ensure that your card has the proper bleed settings and that when it goes to actual final print, it's going to come out looking as best as possible like this. So very important. So we're going to keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and hop back over to Affinity. Here we are. So I already have a project open, ready to go. But if you have Affinity, the way you're going to do this, you're going to go to File. So I'm in the Publisher persona right now. You could also do this in Designer, I believe, also. But I'm going to stay in Publisher. Go to File, go to New Project, or just New. And then when you go to the Layout settings here, so we're going to go ahead to the Document Units, change this from inches to pixels, and then we're going to change the orientation to landscape. So we'll do that, and then we're going to go to page width. So like we saw on the website, we need an 825 pixel width, and then our height, we need to be 1125. And so we got our width, we got our height in pixels. Our DPI, we're going to leave that at 300, which is good, higher resolution. And the last thing to do in Affinity is to come down to the bleed section. And so Affinity is gonna want to automatically give you bleed section, but you don't actually need it for this project. So go ahead and press 0 and should update all of the rest of them to 0. The reason why you don't need it is the card template that we're gonna use and the image file size already takes the bleed into account. So you don't need extra bleed. Next thing you do, click create, boom. And in this case, I'm gonna click cancel. It's gonna take you to a page like this. If you're in Publisher, um, these the default setting is gonna have it. It's gonna try to make you a book, like a 2-page facing type of book. So to change that the way I have it here, where it's just single page at a time, just go to File, go to Document Setup, and then in Document Setup, there's this checkbox here for facing pages. You're gonna want to go ahead and uncheck that box. So I'll go ahead and check it just to show you what it does. We'll click OK, and then now you see it change my orientation where it's going to want to give me, 2 pages at a time. So we'll click OK. And see now we got 2 pages face to face with each other. When we're making trading cards, you really don't want this. It makes it really confusing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and undo my add page. We're going to go to File, go to Document Setup. We're going to uncheck facing pages and then click OK. And then now we got, boom, just one page, one image per page, which is what we want, especially for trading card games. All right, so like I said in this video, we're going to get into making a template, the actual base template that you're going to use to make, tens of hundreds of cards. So depending on your game, you may only need to make one template, or you might need to make, in my case, I had to make something like 8 or 9 templates. So I had like a bunch of different templates, but maybe your game is simpler and you only need 1 or 2 templates, which would be nice. So, all right, so first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna come up here to master page. I'm gonna double click it to make sure that I'm on the master page, setting. The next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna take that template image that we downloaded from the Game Crafter, and we're gonna go ahead and drop it in here. Um, there's a couple ways. You could copy the image and then, click paste and drop it in there. Or you could come here to the place image tool, and you could click on that and then open it up in your files and then drop it into the screen. In my case, I already have it downloaded. So we'll go ahead and click the checkbox, and there it is. You got the template. So what this template is really nice for is it's just going to show you where the cut lines are, and then the blue dotted line is going to show you the safe zone where you want to keep all of your card content, so that way it's safe for printing. And then they give you some other instructions here about border areas and things like that. What I'm going to show you is my border and my bleed zone are exactly the same. When we get to actually putting the card together, you're going to see that it's all just one. It's the same type of pattern. And so no matter what, like the big thing here, let me find a unit card. Here we go. My border and my bleed zones around the edges are always the same. So no matter how the card shifts in the printing process, I always have the same type of border. All right, so first step, and really the only thing you really need this template for, is to create this box. Depending on the type of card, you may not need the same box, but let's go ahead and set it up. So what I do is I take the rectangle tool, click on that, and I'm going to try to get as close to possible as to surrounding this blue dotted line. So it's kind of tough because you're going over top of an image, so you just kind of have to eyeball it the best you can. So I'm going to have to come in a little bit tighter here. That looks pretty close. Actually looks really close. That's not bad. All right, so big thing here. So this rectangle, normally when you do the rectangle shape or the rectangle tool, it's going to be set to 100 opacity, so it's going to be filled in already. For some reason, my setting was already set to 0 opacity. So in my case, I want my card to be, I just want the border. I want the rectangle to be transparent. And so the next step here, now that I actually have a border, I can look at the stroke. So the stroke is your actual like border width. I have it set to 1.5. Actually, for my cards, I usually like it at 1 point, which makes it a thinner line. So if we look, you got this thinner line. If I take away the template, you can see my gray rectangle here. Next thing, we'll go ahead and change the color on this. Actually, would like to have it black. So there we go. Now we have black rectangle. So if you look at my cards, we'll go back to this card. It's might be kind of hard to see, but I have a black rectangle all the way around the border of the card, and that just delineates, what is the border of my card and what is like the content section of the card. All right. The last thing to do to this rectangle, we'll go ahead and click on it. We do need to update the corners. So I usually like to have rounded corners on mine, and I'll usually set it to, I believe it was 2%. How's that look? That actually looks really good. Yeah, 2%. So for Affinity, what's kind of interesting is they're not using points here. So we have rounded edges, and then we have it set to 2%, which when we look at it, it lines up almost perfectly with that blue dotted line, which is what I was looking for. So that's one thing I really like about the Game Crafter's template, is they already have the rounded rectangle, which I like on my cards. Very similar style to Pokemon, really. So all right, so it looks like I got all the blue dotted line covered. It looks perfect, actually. Pretty surprised for doing this, just eyeballing it. So that is good. So we can go ahead and get rid of the template now. So we know that everything within this black rectangle is safe zone, so we're good. Well, like I said, we're building a template here, so I don't want to put any background yet. We're going to save that for a later step in this video. So the next thing we want to do, we need to start adding text boxes, and we need to start adding some framing tools or some image tools. So let's go ahead and start with some image tools. So let's say in my case, like at the top left corner of my cards, I have a faction emblem. So I'm going to go ahead and put that faction emblem here. And I'm going to use the ellipsis frame tool. So this is like an image frame type of tool. And so it's just a circle ellipsis. And as you adjust it, you can see it changes to different sizes and ovals and things like that. One tip, while you're holding the right or the left key, the left button on your mouse, and if you press the shift key, it'll square out the ellipsis tool and make it a perfect circle. So we're gonna let's just go. It's not an official template for me, it's just more of an example. We'll go 100 pixels by 100 pixels. Boom, there we go. So this frame tool is done, and then we'll go ahead and center it the best we can. It's not going to do any snapping here at the moment, so that looks pretty good. Like, I like the placement of that emblem, so we'll go ahead and leave it there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go with the picture frame rectangle tool. So this is going to be another picture frame, and let's just go ahead and start. So this is going to be like the main art in our picture. So here we go right here. This is one of the main reasons why I like Affinity, is they do a fantastic job when you're in Publisher of trying to align the different objects within your project. So you can see here that it wants to snap us in where it lines up directly with the bottom of the ellipsis frame, which is great. That's the kind of uniformity that I'm looking for. And maybe we'll probably have to bring it down a tad, but that's okay. So this looks good for a good size portion of art in the card. We're actually going to bring this down a little bit just because we don't want it to crowd that ellipsis tool. Okay, so this is going to be our card art. So like if you look at this card, it's going to be the main like art on the card. So I usually like to drag mine in a tad, so I don't want it completely right up against the black border. So we'll go ahead and bring it in a little bit, maybe just a few pixels. We'll kind of want to do that. Yeah, in this case, it's not wanting to snap anything. It's kind of a bummer, so we'll try to get really close. Eventually, what we can do is we can go back and take a look at the actual. We can look at the pixel width of this black triangle or rectangle, and then we could look at the pixel width of the picture frame, and then we could try to find a medium to where we make sure we have enough pixels between the two on each side, so that way it's equal. We'll get to that later, but that's one of the nice things also about Affinity is it gives you the ability to go in and look at things pixel by pixel for when you're looking for real extreme accuracy. All right, so we got our picture frame. Next thing we're gonna do, I would like to put a frame around this, some type of like stylish frame. So that what we can do with that is let's go to our rectangle tool. We'll line it right up with, oops, we'll line it right up with the picture frame. So you can see it snaps into the corner. We'll go ahead and drag it, and we'll make it, it just sits right over the top of that rectangle picture frame that we just made. It's even on top of it in the hierarchy here, which is good. And speaking of the hierarchy, anytime that you need to move objects above or below each other in the image, you can do that in the hierarchy by dragging those objects. And so we'll probably see some more of that later. So anyways, now that we're here, we're going to want to change the style of this rectangle to make it look a little bit better. So how we can do that, we have to actually get out of Publisher for this one and go to Designer. So we'll come up here to the left-hand side, click on the Designer persona. Here we are, we still have our image, but now we have access to actual layer effects and things like that, things that you can't do in Publisher. So we'll go to effects. We still have the rectangle selected. I'm going to click on the 3D. So what's nice about this is we're going to bring up this layer effects menu. If we just click, it's kind of hard to see. Actually, maybe I could just like zoom in here. Zoom in. But there's a slight like 3D effect on this rectangle. You can see where it's raised a little bit. So that's what we're looking for. We want that. So let's go ahead and we'll probably change the color of it. We'll do that here in a sec. But we have our 3D settings. We have the radius set to 5 pixels. You can change that to whatever you like, and you can see it's kind of changed the format of the 3D. So I'm not really sure I like that, but we'll go ahead and take that back to 5, which is great. There we go. Now it's got a little bit more raised edges. You can change the light direction that shines on this object by changing this area here. So this comes in kind of handy. You can see like the light moving within the rectangle. I usually leave it on the upper right corner. leisurely looks the best. And then you could change the profile if you need to. So like I just usually leave it blank. But if you want to change to like a sharper profile, you can do that. Or if you want more of like a rounded type of look, you just click on these standard profiles. So like if we do sharp, you can see now it's hard to see, but it's actually like pointed. So you can see like this, this pointy ridge that goes all the way around it. And here, let's do this. Let's change the color so it's easier to see. So we'll go ahead and we'll make it a gray. So I'll just go 170 in the RGB, 170, 170. There we go. We got a nice looking gray. Then we'll close. To be honest, I kind of like this sharp ridge. It looks pretty good. So maybe we'll leave it for now, just for the example of the video. But yeah, you could see it's got a 3D raised ridge now, we added a little bit of style. So we'll go ahead and back out. There we go. We got our picture frame. Looks kind of metallic, which is cool. If we wanted, we could bump it up to, actually, we probably should bump it up to 1.5. There we go. A little bit thicker. And yeah, it's just a tad bit thicker, but it's nicer. Cool. So there we go. We got a picture frame. What else do we need? Let's take a look at the cards. So we're gonna need some attacks, right? So we'll put some attacks. Let's do that. Well, actually, we need text for our name. So let's go ahead and we can still do that here in Designer. So we'll go ahead and add a text box here, and you can see how it's lining up with my picture frames. So we'll just go ahead and make it look like that, nice and uniform. So this is the text box. We're going to leave this here. We're not going to fill it in yet because this is going to be a template. And then let's go ahead and come down. We're going to add some other text boxes. So let's go ahead and add a text box here. So this is going to be an attack. So that looks pretty good. Like I said, you can get down to the actual like pixel width and things like that. In this case, we're not going to get too specific, but for your project, you may want to get more specific. All right, and then we're going to add the attack damage. So you can see how it's lining up with the attack name, which is great. Like usually when I'm building cards, I want this uniformity. I want the attack name to be aligned with the attack damage. So when you're looking at the card, it actually lines up straight and correctly the way it should be. So that's where, like I said, Affinity saves you a ton of time. You have the snapping tools. It looks to align those things for you. All right, and then so I would say the only other thing we need, we'll go ahead and suck this in a little bit. I think the attack cost might be a little bit too big. We're gonna need some like attack cost, right? So if you look at my cards, you could tell that I've modeled these after Pokemon, and so my attack cost, I have the different emblems showing you how many ammo cards it takes to power that attack. So what we can do for that is if we go back to Publisher, we're going to have to add some ellipsis images, which is what I used. So we'll go ahead and I'll click Shift. We'll make sure that they're perfect and they line up with the text boxes perfectly. Cool, that looks good. And then now that I've made that perfect one, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. And then we'll get my arrow tool back, and then we'll take that duplicated ellipsis, and bam, we already got it locking into each other. You can see how it's lined up perfectly, right? Which is exactly what we want. And then let's say we want to add more, right? So we can go ahead and duplicate that, and we could drag it down and you could see how so on and so forth. You could just keep duplicating and make them how you want. So we'll add one more. Go ahead and duplicate. There we go. All right, and then I'd say the last thing that we need is probably an attack description box. So we'll go ahead and duplicate that as well, and then we'll drag it down. There we go. And then we'll just give a little extra space, add some description. So we can add description text here, which is nice. Another thing you can do too is, actually, I don't like these. Hold on, drag these down. There we go. That looks a little bit better. There we go. They're evenly spaced now. All right. Another thing you can do with the template is you can set the font. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and set the font for this template to my standard Gothic font. I'll leave it at 12. I think that's okay. And then for down here, we'll change this font to something else. We'll change it to, it could be anything, whatever you like. So we could just put Calibri. It's fine. We don't want it to be italic. We'll just leave it regular, and then we'll crank it down so it's not so huge to like 6 point. All right, it's left align. And then, oh, we got to change. So this is another thing working in Affinity. I struggled with this. You can see my cursor for the text box is down at the bottom. If you change this to like 6, have it match, we should get it to line up. We'll have to work on the alignment. For whatever reason, it's not wanting to. Actually, we might just go ahead and let's do this instead. We'll get rid of the. There we go. And then we'll add another text box. There we go. Just have it line up. Yeah, I think my settings are off. We'll have to play around with this some more. But yeah, so we got an attack description. We have our attack costs, things like that. And another thing we can do is we can take, this is another really helpful feature. If you click on your first object here, and then you press shift, and then you just go ahead and click all of the objects that you want to select. So in this case, I'm going to click this guy too. And yeah, so all of these objects cover this entire like attack section that I've set up. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and group them. And so now they're a part of a single group here in the layer hierarchy, which helps out. And then if you want, you can go ahead and just duplicate the entire group. So there we go. And then we'll get our pointer tool and we'll drag them down. And that saves us a bunch of time and effort. Bam, now we got 2 attacks ready to go on this template, which is awesome. And then if we want to add other things like retreat and things like that, we can totally do that. So maybe we want to put like some type of divider line, right? We can do that too. We'll go ahead and get this rectangle tool. We will line it up with our picture frame, and we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll line it up with the other side of the picture frame, and we'll make it really tight to where it just looks like a line. Looks kind of weird. Let's go ahead and tighten it up a little bit. Oh, well, we actually have to go back to the designer to do that. So let's go back to the layer effects. I don't remember how to make this. I know that's just a rectangle, but oh, there we go. Looks better. Close. There we go. So we got a divider, and then if we want to add some other text at the bottom, we can totally do that. So we'll go ahead and add another text box. There you go. You can add whatever text you want. So we'll just put one giant text box. And now we got our template. So this template is complete. We have the card name, we have an emblem, we have a spot for a picture, we have 2 attacks with attack cost frames. One thing to keep in mind, I actually may have to adjust these frames, but usually these frames will disappear if you don't fill them in with images. They'll actually disappear from the card, which is good because not every card is going to fill up those ellipsis frames, so that's a good thing. All right, so that is how I make a template in Affinity. And so now that this template is made, if I wanted to make other templates for other types of cards, cards with abilities, command cards, things like that, I would just go ahead and make a new template. One easy thing to do also is that you can come over here to the master page section. You can right click and duplicate the template, and then update the new version of the template to whatever you need to do. And so that saves you even more time on top of already making the template to save time. But yeah, and that, of course, if you duplicate, it's going to save all your settings for your picture frames and things like that. So I hope this helps somebody. This is how I do it. This is how I make my cards. Hopefully you guys get some inspiration from it and make your own cards. So this is the style that I like, but I am experimenting with some other things like full art and things like that. So that is how you make a template. Go ahead, if you would like to see how I actually put the card together, how I add text, pictures, things like that, go ahead and stick around for the next video that I put up on your screen here in a second, or any second now. But stick around. We're gonna go and actually complete the card. We're gonna add a background, image, things like that. So click on the next video, and I'll see you there.